those PITA clients, pain in the behind, we'll use. They're not fun. They're a drag on you. They take your energy. I don't want to work with them. So I've done really well keeping them out of my orbit for the most part, given the number of years I've been doing this.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Coach Tribe. I'm super excited to be joined again by my good friend Marc Mawhinney, who's a lifelong entrepreneur who helps coaches get more clients without paid advertising. And he's achieved this with his coaching programs, his podcast, Natural Born Coaches, his Facebook group, The Coaching Jungle, and his exclusive print newsletter, Secret Coach Club. He's been a speaker at events like Social Media Marketing World, frequently makes media appearances, and contributes for Entrepreneur.com. You can learn more about Marc at naturalborncoaches.com. Marc, it's a pleasure to have you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tango.
So straight off the bat, my question would be, why should people watch this episode?
Because we're both awesome, right?
I'm straight.
Very humble now. Well, I mean, not to be too braggadocious, but I guess, for one, you guys are doing great work with the Coach Tribe, and I watch what you're doing. I've been in this world helping coaches since 2014, so I've learned a thing or two in that time. And coaches need the help. There's nothing wrong with in fact, you should be learning from other people and growing and seeing what's working and what's not for other people as well. So I try to learn every day from good people, and I hope others are doing the same.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we're all about. And I think you've got a lot of interesting and exciting things to share, especially across kind of organic marketing. I think this episode will be fantastic to kind of delve into that and understand, especially for beginner and intermediate coaches, how they can best progress. So going into that, I guess my first question would be, for a coach beginning today, or maybe they've been around for a few months, close to a year, they might be time rich and cash poor. And so they'll be wanting to build and scale their business using organic routes. What would you say is the best way to get started for a coach like that?
Well, first I'll mention that you don't need to use ads. I think that there's a temptation that you have to jump in and start throwing thousands of dollars into ads and fancy funnels early on in your journey. A little bit with my backstory is when I started in 2014, I was coming off the heels of a bad business closure. Not that there's ever any good business closures, but I was in real estate. I'd built up a large company, had about 100 agents and employees, and then everything collapsed. Flash forward a few years past that, when I started my coaching business, I was frustrated at first because I didn't have access to the capital that I had back in my real estate days, because I used to spend a fortune on marketing to get listings and to get clients. It ended up being a blessing in disguise, because it forced me to roll up my sleeves and do it the free, organic way. And I find a lot of people jumping into the coaching world, maybe they have a package from their company if they're coming from a 9-to-5 corporate type gig, or they've got some money, set aside, and then they get a little bit lazy because they try to shortcut it and just hire people to do basically everything, but then they're not building that discipline muscle. So for me, organically, I had to show up every day. I had to hone my message and work on all those things, because I didn't have the money to throw into hiring all these people and to pay for all these ads with it. So when it comes to organic, there's two things I recommend people choose for their criteria for where to be organically. Because of course, Tango, there's 1,000 places you can be. You'd be doing all of them. You wouldn't be able to focus on any of them. So I always recommend focusing on a couple things. Like I have 3 pillars for mine. And the main criteria I look at for those places I focus on is it has to be something that I enjoy, because if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to do it every day. You're going to get sick of it. You're going to find excuses to do something else, and that's not good. And it has to be something that works, obviously. So the example I always use is if your favorite thing in the world is to roll out of bed and yell out your window at passersby, they're walking by like, hey, hire me. That's probably not the best. Even if you enjoy doing it, it could be your favorite thing in the world. You can't wait to do it. It's probably not going to work. So the main criteria is it should be something you enjoy and something that obviously works.
Yeah, super interesting. And so I think there's kind of like 3 main things to think about in terms of business wise. And that is your clients or your audience who you want to attract, your offering, and how you reach your potential clients to then essentially distribute that offering. And so my question is there an order that's the right way to think about it? Like, did you decide that you would go down your marketing routes and then from the back of those marketing routes, the right clients came? Or did you start thinking about, these are my clients and therefore I should reach my clients using these marketing techniques on these
It's
channels?
it's a little bit of the chicken or the egg, right? Because a lot of times people try to nail that niche, which we heard, or niche. We hear that word all the time in the coaching world, but then they get out there and realize that it's hard to reach those people. Maybe it's not quite the right niche, or there's not that demand, or whatever. And then they have to go back to the drawing board. The approach I recommend in the early stages is to not overthink what you're doing, or try to. I know everyone always says you have to get down to a really tight niche and all this stuff, but if you're brand new to the game, you're going to have to experiment and try some different things to see who you enjoy helping and what you're good at doing. So what I recommend doing when you're choosing who to help is looking at a few things. First off, you want to look at your background. Is there something in your background, your history, that helps? So, for example, if you've lost 100 pounds, in your own personal journey, then you could probably be a pretty good health coach helping other people who are looking to lose 100 or more pounds, because you've done that before. So look at your background, to see if there's some hints there, some breadcrumbs. The other thing would be things you enjoy. What kind of blogs are you reading? What shows are you watching? What YouTube videos are you checking out at every chance you can get? What magazines are you reading? And so on. What could you talk people's ear off 24/7 about? Is there something there? And that could be another hint too. So the way that I recommend for clients to do it, you get a yellow legal pad, just vomit out a bunch of ideas, a bunch of interests and things like that. And then you can start narrowing it down. Once you start to look in, you can do some research, see if there's other coaches in that in those fields. Is there a need for that, a demand, and go from there.
I love that. So essentially kind of brainstorm everything that you could have an advantage in, and then from that kind of, by the process of elimination, figure out what you would enjoy and what you're good at.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't have to have it right out of the gate. I mean, if you could, that would be great. There's no harm in pivoting a little bit or evolving as time goes on. So I know some successful coaches who've pivoted or evolved 4 times. One in particular I know has a really successful podcast, successful business, and he's changed his focus 4 times. Maybe he's up to 5 now. I don't know. It's not the end of the world. It's not like we're all judging him and saying, "Oh my God, what a loser! He changed his niche or whatever." People don't care if you have to change when you're doing it. I've had other clients before. Years ago, I had a new coach who started in, and he had gotten through a really bad breakup. A woman broke his heart, and he was in really rough shape. So he wanted to be a men's breakup coach, and that's what he started with. After doing that for a couple months, he said to me, he's like, "Mark, I don't think I could do this." It was really weighing on him, like the emotions. He sucked in a lot of that energy, and he was getting depressed again, trying to help these men through or whatever. And he ended up going away from that, or pivoting away. He wouldn't have known until he started working with them that he would have felt that way.
That brings up 2 interesting points from actually conversations we previously had on this podcast, one with Joe Ingram and one with Luke Andrews. So Joe was talking about how it definitely makes sense to utilize any kind of background expertise and knowledge you have, but it might also be that the reason you left that background was because energetically you don't align well with it. So it could be like you left corporate, you might be able to coach corporate, but if you find that draining, then it might not be the right choice to follow that background. So just something to be wary of there. But then the other point as well that Luke mentioned, Luke Andrews, who actually also had a real estate background, he made an interesting point around even the background knowledge that you have. A lot of people feel intimidated that they're not world-renowned experts in something, but you don't have to be the very top of your field. What's important is that you're at least 2 steps ahead on the transformation journey relative to your audience. And actually, you being at C, from A to C, that journey is much more relatable for your potential clients than somebody who's already at A to Z, right? So like realizing that you don't have to be at the very top, you just have to be a few steps ahead, and you can still teach people who are just starting their journey.
Exactly.
I think that's kind of brings us to the marketing methods that you used. So you have your 3 pillars, and I'd love you to kind of delve and share those. Like, why did you choose those 3, and what are those 3? How do you do them well?
Right. So I'll preface it by saying my 3 pillars could be different than yours, people listening or watching. So don't feel like it has to be these 3. I'll just give my example so people can pick and choose. Maybe 1 or 2 of them fit for you, and then you have to slot something else in. My big 3 pillars I focus on, one is podcasting. So that's my show, Natural Born Coaches, which you've been on. So thank you for being on the show.
My
Natural Born
pleasure.
Coaches, but it's also on the other side of the mic and doing what we're doing here today, me going out at other people's shows. So a lot of times people say, oh, I have to do podcasting, and they only focus on, okay, you got to get a show up and running. Well, you're missing a lot of opportunities by not getting out to be a guest on other shows, and vice versa. If you're just going out on other shows, you don't have your own show, missing some opportunities too. So podcasting is one of them. The other one is community building. Now I focus on my Facebook group, the Coaching Jungle. As of today, there's about 24,000 members in there. It's been running since 2015. Good large group, a lot going on, and that's big. But maybe your people aren't on Facebook. Maybe they're elsewhere. I have a client who doesn't like Facebook because people aren't there. He has a community using Mighty Networks. That's where he gathers them. So community building, you can build it anywhere. But that's one of my other pillars is community building. And finally, my third is email marketing, but specifically daily emails, which I know some people hear that and think, oh my God, he's crazy. And trust me, I've heard every single objection to daily emails out there. I probably had them before I started emailing daily in 2016. But I'm a big fan of daily emails, and that's one of my important pillars as well. So podcasting, community building, and daily emails.
Sounds like a lot of work.
It is. I'm not going to lie. It's not a 5 minute a day or 5 minute a week type get rich quick. Now, that being said, the longer you're doing it, it's going to get easier. So recently I worked on a week's worth of content because I batch mine. I don't sit down the morning of the day the emails have to go out and just start typing on a blank screen. I usually have them scheduled out a week or two in advance. But I created a week's worth of content, but I was able to go back and repackage old content from a few years ago and tweak a few little things, but I got those emails, those posts already like really quickly. So if you start today, in your future, you will be thanking you a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, because you can lean off what you're creating today and you can repackage it. So it does get a lot easier the more you do it.
Yeah, that must be a massive time saver to be able to repurpose that content. Do you think that there's a right way to do it, or like, are you, for example, certain that it's definitely better to batch, or would you say it depends on the person whether they should batch or do it daily or weekly?
Well, it's whatever works for you. I think for most people, batching would be the easiest. And for anyone who doesn't know about that term, batching is basically where you block off a period of time. Let's say, for example, you take an afternoon once a week to create the emails or write emails. So maybe you block off 3 hours, and that's all you focus on, and then you can schedule them out. Within reason, I had a client once who he wanted to do batching on steroids. He wanted to create a year's worth of content. And basically, he would hole himself up for a couple weeks, and that's all he would do. And then, oh, great, I got my content done for the next year. Well, you're going to change a lot. Your business probably will in 365 days versus today. And I think that's a little bit overboard. It's one thing to have a month ahead to give yourself some breathing room, but not a year. I think that's a little bit too much. I don't know. It's whatever works for you, but you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself if you don't batch, because let's say something pops up in your life. You get the flu, you get in a car accident, there's something going on in your personal life or whatever, and you're not able to get that email out that day, then your streak's broken. So if you have at least a week, or if you have a couple weeks batched, it definitely gives you some breathing room. Same goes with podcast interviews too. I like to always have about a month worth in the can.
Yeah, makes complete sense. You also mentioned a point that I kind of want to reiterate. So about not only having your own podcast, but also going on other people's podcasts, and how powerful that is. In the kind of the broader term to describe this as co-marketing. And this is something that I'd highly recommend any coach or creator to think about, in that your audience will be interested in whoever is joining your podcast. But also they have their own audience, and there's no reason why you wouldn't be interesting for their audience. And so this way of promoting each other is a great way to market each other and kind of give an exchange there. So something worth considering. And it's also not something that just applies to podcasts. On the contrary, it applies to many other areas. So it could be an email newsletter. So somebody could join on your email newsletter, and then you could appear on their newsletter, or they could write on your blog and you could write on their blog. And so there's lots of different ways how you can exchange value for each other that's mutually beneficial, and you get to share each other's audiences.
Yeah, exactly. So you're reaching people who may not have otherwise heard of you when you go out on other shows. So I think it's smart. I know a coach, he now has his own podcast, but for the first couple years, he was going on a couple hundred shows a year. He was just a machine. He didn't need his own show in that case because was going on almost a new show every day, and everyone knew about him. Now he has a very successful podcast as well. The best part too, it's free. Very little time. There's a time investment. You take half an hour or whatever, 45 minutes to go out on the show. When I leave here today, you and your team are handling the editing and stuff like that, and I'm off doing other things, right? Vice versa, when you come on my show, I have the team editing it. So there is less work for the guests. They show up, share what they have to share, they have a great conversation, then they leave, and the host has to do all the fun the fun work, like the production.
Yeah, exactly. But it's going to be gorgeous, and we're going to love the post-production, so no problem from our side. And yeah, I wanted to kind of go deeper into those 3 pillars, or the triple punch, which I think is a term you like to use. So especially regarding podcasts. So a coach or creator wants to start a podcast. What are the things they should take into account? What should they begin with, and how do they plan out that journey?
Well, a word of warning, a podcast isn't a magic money tree in your backyard. A lot of people think, oh, I'll start a podcast and a bunch of clients and customers will come rushing through the door. You really want to have a business or compelling offers on the back end of that podcast that you're directing people to. And you also don't want to be too general. This is a mistake I see people make with Facebook groups and a bunch of other things, is they're way too broad. And in 2022, 2023, it's much different than 2005, 2008, when you could get away with a little bit more broad focus or lack of focus for your show. Now you have to be dialed in a bit more. And how many shows have we seen that tried to duplicate what John Lee Dumas did with Entrepreneur on Fire? I think he started in 2012, and it was much different space back then for podcasting, but they said, oh, I'll just start a show and I'll interview entrepreneurs and I'll get millions of downloads a month. That's tough. So you want to have a bit more of a laser focus there with what you're doing. I mean, that would be one big tip. I like having the keyword in the show title, which you guys have. I have it for my show, Natural Born Coaches. So it's very clear that our shows are for coaches. It's no guesswork about that. Really quick story I'll tell about naming my podcast and my business is I was trying to come up with a name for it for my show, and I had the keywords I wanted in there, either coach, coaches, coaching, something around that. And I just couldn't find the right one. I had a bunch of suggestions on a yellow legal pad, and some of them I thought of, I checked and they were taken. I'm like getting really frustrated. So what I did was I looked at the top 100 list of movies every year, music and movies from 2014, because that's when my show launched, all the way back to like 1990 or whatever. So I did, 25 years or so. And what I was doing was first with the song list, like Billboard, I was inserting my keyword into the song titles or the band names to see if I could come up with something. So at one time I owned the domain New Coaches on the Block, from New Kids on the Block, which is lame, it's tacky. Luckily I didn't go with that. Went through 25 years of music, couldn't find anything. So I'm like, oh man. So I went to movies, started in 2014, inserting those keywords in those top movie titles. And I got down to 1994's list, and I came across Natural Born Killers, Oliver Stone's movie, great movie with Woody Harrelson, Juliette Lewis, Robert Downey Jr. And it just fit in there, Natural Born Coaches. So after that, I ended up doing the 15 most nerve-wracking seconds in any entrepreneur's life is when you go over to GoDaddy or whichever website host and punch in to see if it's available. And then you cross your fingers, say, oh God, please be available. Luckily, Natural Born Coaches was. And that's how I named my show. So I mentioned that little story. There's something could work for naming a program, a book, not just podcasts or anything else. It might help someone here who's watching this name something.
That's amazing, and also gives you a sense of urgency that you, if you are planning to do it, you should definitely move quick and get going as soon as possible to make sure that your ideal domain or your ideal page or ideal podcast isn't already taken. But yeah, amazing stuff. The Coach Tribe podcast is powered by Pensight. I want to take this opportunity to tell you more about Pensight and how much value it can provide you and your coaching business.
Pensight is an all-in-one platform for coaches and educators that enables you to quickly and easily build a highly credible page and sell your knowledge with one-to-one sessions, group coaching, courses, Q&As, digital products, and bundles. Payments, scheduling, video calling, client communications, and everything else is taken care of.
All it takes is 5 minutes to set up, and it's free. It's the smartest way to kickstart your coaching business. Sign up to Pensight today at pensight.com. And that kind of ties into another topic that you mentioned very briefly. You mentioned discipline as a word, and the importance of like having that self-motivation to get started today and to keep doing something consistently as well. So first of all, like, how do you instill that discipline in yourself? And then how you also mentioned that you like working with people who have that discipline, that consistency, who will be there for a longer term change. How do you identify that in other people?
So I'm really lucky because of my background, I had to be disciplined starting all the way back from being a kid. Now, my family didn't have a farm, so there's no story about getting up at 3 a.m. to milk cows and all that stuff. But I lived outside the city. I have a twin brother. He and I grew up in the country, and we had to get the bus at a god awful early hour in the morning. And if we weren't out there on time, the bus passed. We weren't going to school. I think the bus came at 6:45 or something in the morning. It was really early with it. So I was always an early riser and all that. And then I had jobs like paper routes and was pumping gas as a student and all that other stuff, which instilled habits. Real estate was really important. I did that for 10 years throughout my 20s because in real estate, you have to show up every day. You know, you're almost on call with clients and you got to get those things done. So by the time I started my coaching, it wasn't like I was 21 years old and didn't have any of those habits. Like I had already, you know, done a lot with my real estate business, and I transfer those habits over for discipline and consistency when it came to my coaching business. So how do you build that? I mean, you could build a consistency muscle. I think that there's some people out there that are naturally lazy that will never want to do that. But I think for a lot of people, you can improve on it. You can build it. I think it comes down to your why. You know, if the why is just money. Now, full disclosure, anyone watching this can see the background. I've got a picture of money back there with a bunch of US $100 bills. I obviously love money. Money is a powerful motivator for me. But if your only motivator is money, things get a little bit tough, tight. You're going through the difficult times. You could get very discouraged. So if you have a powerful why to drag you through there and get you out of bed every day to do those things you have to do consistently, then that's going to help.
So true. That soul searching to discover that why is definitely the enabler of ensuring you have that motivation, because you can't have that discipline and willpower without having a good motivation. So completely agree with you. And the other question was around that you like to work with people as well who will be committed to longer term change, which requires discipline and consistency. So I'm curious, how do you kind of identify that when you're talking to your clients? Is there a way to do that, or is it kind of trial and error?
I find when I'm selling, whether it be a program or some sort of offer, I like to slip things into the copy that will push away the get rich quickers or the people who are wanting to work 5 minutes a day. I have the terms I use are freeple and cheaple as well. People want free things or cheap things. So I'll specifically fit things in there that I know would get their back up and chase them off the sales page or whatever. They won't book a call with me. And often I'll put my criteria right out there when I'm out there. You know, I've got openings for clients and I'll say, here's what I'm looking for. You know, we've talked about some of the things I'm looking for, ideally action takers, you know, people who want to put the effort in. I'm looking for people who pay on time, you know, pay me what I'm worth, not wanting to pay peanuts, obviously. You know, so there's certain criteria there that I think is very important. Coachable, you know, people who can take advice, they don't get their backs up, and they're willing to learn and to do different things. So that's one way that a lot of people don't do that because they're afraid of chasing away potential clients, right? So they want to try to appeal to everyone, but then they don't appeal to anyone, or the people they get aren't the right fit for them. And you know what it's like, Tango. It's those PITA clients, pain in the, you know, behind, we'll use. They're not fun, you know, they're a drag on you. They take your energy. They just, I don't want to work with them. So I've done really well keeping them out of my orbit for the most part, given the number of years I've been doing this.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting, the idea of essentially reducing the number of people or the number of people you're targeting just makes your life so much easier in so many ways. First of all, it makes marketing a lot easier because you can be much more clear and direct with your messaging. You're not trying to talk to everybody in the world. But secondly, you can also self-select out the people who you don't want to work with, who either won't be able to commit or who aren't a good match energy-wise for you and who drain you. So it definitely makes sense to have that kind of self-selection criteria so that people who don't match you can leave as soon as possible, so you can focus on the people who you will be able to achieve the biggest transformation with. And it brings to mind also a sales technique, which is kind of the warning. So you essentially warn people in a way that makes them feel like they're in an exclusive group. So, when you're selling some kind of package, then, like, this is only for the people who are willing to commit, 50 hours a week to achieve this or whatever, that kind of thing, where it's at first, when you hear that, for most people, it's scary and will push them away. But that means that the people who aren't interested are really deeply interested, and it attracts those people more.
Yeah, I have a friend who he's in the online program space, but he used to be a website developer, and he was running into a lot of flaky clients, people like scope creep. They're trying to get stuff from him that they didn't pay for, and they just weren't his ideal fit. And one day in a he just had it, and he ended up changing his website to put exactly who he wanted to work with, and he was brutally honest and candid. He didn't sugarcoat it. And he got some clients who approached him, a husband and wife, and he asked them, "So how did you find out about me?" And they're like, "Well, we were on your website, we read who you work with, and we thought, oh my God, that's us to a T." Exactly us. And yeah, I don't think he'd mind me telling this because I've used this story in emails and things. Scott Patton is the friend who did that. I always remember that story that Scott did. Another friend in the coaching world has a webinar that he does showing how new coaches can earn $4,000 a month coaching. Now, some people would look at that and say, $4,000 a month, like they're looking for the big 7 figures in 30 days working 5 minutes a day, right? Like 4,000 is a very small number to those people. What they don't realize, a lot of people who have a job currently looking to add coaching on the side and then eventually build it up bigger, perhaps. 4,000 a month is a decent amount of money, but it's also the exact opposite what all the gurus are talking about and promising in the coaching world. It sticks out like a sore thumb and it seems very believable versus all these tacky gurus who are promising you're gonna make $1 million, without doing anything. And he did really well with that because it was a lower promise, a more realistic one.
Yeah, it was Seth Godin who said, to be remarkable, people have to remark at what you're doing. And that's exactly that. I mean, like, the first thing when I hear that is like, really? Like, that's so different. Like, why would I aim for 4K? But clearly this stands out. So yeah, super powerful.
Yeah, exactly.
And you also mentioned, I wanted to quickly ask you about your second pillar as well, which was daily emails. For people who prefer writing to, say, podcasting, what are some of the tips, the do's and the don'ts of writing emails, and specifically writing daily emails?
Well, you don't have to write a 1,000-word or 10,000-word email every day. My emails are pretty short and to the point. Basically, the structure is I usually tell a story, give a quick lesson or something I want people to know and think they should know. And then it goes to a call to action. But it's not an arm twisty, tacky, all explanation point, false scarcity type stuff that you see in the coaching world. I'm allergic to that type of copy and writing. So I basically write my emails like I talk with it. So what I would normally do is tell the story or get whatever insight I want to give. Then I'd say, by the way, I go over this in greater detail in module 2 of my XYZ program. You can get the details here and then the link, just like that. If people don't like writing, you can still do daily emails, which sounds funny to say. People, well, how? That doesn't make sense. If you absolutely hate writing, what I would do, let's say you're more of a video person, if you're doing daily Facebook Lives or YouTube videos or TikToks, whatever, you can send an email to your list. It's simple, one sentence. Hey, I went live on Facebook today, let's say they're health coach, to show how you can lose 5 pounds safely and easily in the next 2 weeks while still eating your favorite food or whatever. Here's the link to give it a watch, and that's it. Like one sentence. You're not writing a big long email. But I'm a really big fan of email because social media, you know what it's like, Facebook, these other ones, reach can be sort of all over the map. Engagement's been dropping in recent years. Ad costs are, going all over the place if you're doing that. You actually own your email list and you control that. You can't get canceled, booted off, deplatformed, like Facebook and some of the others, or all the others are doing nowadays. So I'm a really big fan of having an email list. I really think all entrepreneurs should be building one.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's the best way to build an email list?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't use this term when you're going out to do it, but you want to use a lead magnet. Now, don't say lead magnet. Hey, do you want my lead magnet? Give me your email address, because people don't want to think of themselves as leads. So perhaps use different wording, like, hey, would you like my free resource, free gift, whatever. Don't call them lead magnets. We're just doing it's inside baseball here now with all of us. But yeah, you need to give them something in exchange for that email address. And it's not like the old days. You probably remember the old websites rarely did that, but they would have like a box on their site that said, hey, sign up for my newsletter. Maybe it could work back 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Nowadays, people's inboxes are full. They're not going to sign up for your newsletter out of the goodness of their heart. If you're giving them something of value in exchange for that resource, and then you're keeping them engaged every day, you're sending out good emails that makes them think that they enjoy reading, you're going to get them on your list, and you're probably going to keep them on your list that way.
I think the way to think about it is a super simple 3-step framework of attract, trust, build trust, and monetize. And so that attraction comes from this lead magnet idea. Again, don't use that word, but the idea is you're giving something of value to attract them. And think about like, what would be the most valuable gift that you could give somebody in your target audience and your ideal customer profile. If you can give that as a free gift, then they will, first of all, be super attracted to you, but you're immediately building trust. And then your email drip campaigns over a long period of time will build trust. And as long as you keep delivering that value, then it'll become much, much easier to get them into paying clients at the end. So
a few years ago, my email platform had a tech glitch that morning. So when my email was set to go out, no one's emails were going out. And I didn't know that until I started to get some emails probably half an hour after my email goes out, because I usually send it it's scheduled the same time every day. And I started to get emails from subscribers. Some of them I didn't even know. And they're like, hey, Mark, I didn't get your email today. What's going on? Or one person's like, did you take me off your list? Someone else thought it was like a social experiment I was doing. I'm like, no. And I checked on it, and Aweber was having a platform issue. They went out a little bit later on with it. But that shows the power of daily emails, that when people don't get that email that they're used to seeing the same time every day, they start to wonder, oh, geez, where is it? And they want that, and then they're reaching out to ask where it is. So.
That's so funny. You'd condition them like Pavlov's dog.
Yes, that's right. Their mouths are watering. I ring the bell or whatever.
Amazing. And yeah, from the other side, I'd like to quickly mention Pensight's a great way with that. You can share a lead magnet, so you can create a super customizable, beautiful profile with your own subscriber form, where you can mention that people will get something in return for signing up. And you can also offer digital products for free. So it could be an ebook, it could be a PDF one-pager, it could be an audio file, it could be a video course, whatever you want. That's a great way to collect emails. And then with the help of tools like Zapier, which essentially connect and integrate things and pipe data from one place to another, you can use Aweber or ConvertKit or MailChimp or one of the many email marketing softwares that exist. So do you use Aweber now? Do you recommend any specific email marketing tool, Marc?
Yeah, I've used Aweber for years, and it's not fancy. I know some people are like, oh, no, you have to use Infusionsoft or you have to use that. It's whatever platform you're most comfortable with, then go with it. Because if it takes an engineering degree to try to figure it out, or a computer programming degree, and you just don't feel it, then it's going to be even tougher to write those emails. I like Aweber. I know the ins and outs, and I'm comfortable with it, where I've been using it for almost 10 years. So there's no impediment to me sitting down and typing out emails. I've looked at other platforms for clients and things like that. And some, not that there aren't good ones out there, but I'm like, I really don't like this. I like going with Aweber. Simple, works for me. I've been happy with it. But it's whichever one you like and you're comfortable with, then you're going to feel more. You're going to be more likely to write those emails if you like the platform.
Definitely, and I think that's a key point when deciding any tooling. Like, there's so many tools that exist in today's age, but as long as you focus on what's simple and can get you going as soon as possible, you don't want to be stuck in analysis paralysis where you're deciding which is the best software for 4 weeks. When you could be sending an email from today. Amazing, Marc. It's been a pleasure to have you on, and we have one final section as well, a surprise part for our guests, which is called the Rapid Fire 5. So we're going to ask you 5 quick questions of which you don't yet have any idea what I'm going to say. Are you ready?
Sure, fire away.
Awesome. So question number 1 is, if anything, what would you change if you were to start your journey again?
I would get more help sooner and not try to be a lone wolf with everything.
Interesting. Second question, what's one belief that you've changed recently?
I won't say the name. I invest in a lot of programs because I'm always learning. And there was one program from a really well-known marketer that's very good marketing that, for years I thought I want to join this or whatever. And I was disappointed with it. So I changed my belief that this guy was a real deal. And there's not saying it was total garbage. Try to cram way too much in there. It was confusing. It was a waste of time and a little disappointing because it was pretty high investment thing. So I changed my belief. Not all, don't believe everything you hear. Some people are great marketers and not so good with delivering what they're selling.
Interesting. It's a shame, but you live and you learn.
Yeah.
But yeah, question number 3. What's one piece of advice you'd give to your 5-year younger self?
5 years old or 5 years ago?
5 years younger, and so older from today, as in 5 years ago.
5 years ago?
Yeah.
Buy stock in masks, hand sanitizers, TikTok, if it was around, get on board with that right away.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, all kidding aside from the whole COVID and lockdowns and all that stuff, is the lesson that came from it is don't put all your eggs in one basket. So you got to make sure that you're not, look at what happened. So many businesses that were, you never thought would be shut down. Speakers, even, for example, with live events, that was gone like that. And they still haven't totally recovered with it. So I would tell 5-year younger Marc, prepare for the unexpected, because no one would have seen what happened March 2020 and that's been going on with it. So buckle up. Don't be surprised. Anything can happen. Might be a zombie apocalypse next, or who knows.
It's true. Who knows? Awesome. Question number 4 is, what's one book everybody should read?
Anyone who's seen me talk before, this isn't any surprise, but the one I recommend is back in my bookshelf, Thick Face, Black Heart by Chin-Ding Chu. It's not really well known. It was written in the 1990s. Excellent book about human behavior, human psychology, and understanding your fellow man. It's not a rosy, everyone's dancing around a circle singing Kumbaya, manifest, hey girly, manifest your dreams type stuff. It's very real with it and grounded, but it's very powerful. On a side note, that'd be 1A. 1B would be probably the 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene. And all of Robert Greene's books are great, but those 2 books are linked in, even though they're not the same author. There's some similarities there.
Yeah, sounds like the Marc I know, raw and real.
Yeah.
Question number 5, and the final question is, if you had one message to write on a billboard for the most people to see, what would you write on that billboard?
It'd be something along the lines of stop caring what other people think. Yeah, that's probably the biggest issue I see out there, not just with coaches, but humans in general. They worry way too much about other people's opinions.
Definitely. Probably the biggest key to happiness as well, for sure. Awesome. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show again, Marc. Of course, you can catch all of Marc's details, his social links, and more, and you can reach out to him on his Pensight profile, pensight.com/x/Marc Mawhinney. Marc, do you have any closing words for today's episode?
Nothing. Just get out there, be consistent. I think that's a theme running through this chat, is just be disciplined. It's not always sexy to think of consistency. It's not like I said, the sexiest superpower, but it's an important one. There's a lot of compound benefits that come from showing up every day. So yeah, be consistent, do what you love, and make money, and don't feel bad about it.
Yeah, consistency is a superpower. And on that note, we'll see you on the next episode, which we release weekly, consistently. It's been a pleasure having you, Marc. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed this episode.
We'll be releasing every Wednesday, so make sure to
Subscribe
and rate us 5 stars where you're listening to this show to give others a chance to discover it too.